Hi, everyone. I'm Eden Maybon of lightcycleastrology.com. Welcome to the channel, friends. I am a Hellenistic or traditional astrologer, and today we are taking a look at the astrology for the week ahead of July the 10th through the 16th, 2023. And this is Mantic Monday, episode number 4 we're doing here on the channel. So, of course, before we get into the astrology, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit notifications, leave me some comments in the comment section. And you can always go to my website, lightcycleastrology.com, if you ever want to get a reading from me. Okay, well, let's pull up the real-time clock and take a look at the transits that are coming through this week before we get into the themes that are associated with some of these particular aspects. For me, the first transit that is really important is beginning actually yesterday and lasts until Tuesday. This is Mercury moving into an opposition with Pluto. This perfects today around 8:40 p.m. GMT time. And this is actually an aspect that is cut short because Mercury moves out of the sign of Cancer into Leo, and that aspect is broken up at that point. So a very quick aspect that is coming through, but I think important because when planets aspect Pluto, oftentimes we get that Plutonian intensity to it. So for me, that really sticks out as a beginning signature of the week here. But on Monday now, beginning the week, from Monday at 1:50 a.m. until 11:56 p.m., let me roll the clock forward here a few hours, we get the last quarter moon lunar phase beginning in the sign of Aries. So this week we get the last quarter lunation phase that begins in Aries. It moves into Taurus, and then we get the dark moon phase that begins in Gemini. So we're getting the end of the lunation cycle this week, right before the new moon that happens in Cancer. And because this is happening in Aries, which is that Mars-ruled springtime cardinal sign, because the moon moves into a springtime Taurus exalted moon conjunct with Jupiter and Uranus sign, this just stood out as a bigger or a more prominent end of a lunation cycle that we would typically otherwise see, I think, at different times of the year. Now, if we go to Monday by 11:40 a.m. GMT time, the real star of the show, or like as they say in the news, don't bury the lead, we are going to get the entrance of Mars into Virgo. And I really like this because for one, it's sometimes nice to get planets moving into new signs. It feels refreshed. And I think that Mars in Virgo has more of that rational or tempered quality to it that is different from Mars in Leo. So that is really a big energy of the week as well. Now, if we go to Tuesday, we're going to get Mercury also moving into a new sign by 5 a.m. So we'll roll the clock forward here to Tuesday, 5 a.m. Here goes Mercury into Leo. This is also a pretty interesting change because Mercury has been quite sensitive in the sign of Cancer, a sign connected to the moon. And also, Mercury is an evening star at this point, which is definitely a more sensitive or social Mercury. So if you'll notice here in the chart, we have Mercury to the left of the sun here. Whenever you see Mercury to the left of the sun, that is going to be Mercury as an evening star. When Mercury is to the right, we get Mercury rising in the morning. But just to show you, for example, if I pull down the planets toward the western descendant here, here's the sun at sunset time, making that conjunction to the western horizon degree. And you see that Mercury is still up in the sky a little bit above the sun. So that's how you know that when you see Mercury to the left like that, Mercury is an evening star. But in any case, this is a changeover from Mercury because Mercury being an evening star right now symbolizes that Mercury is a bit more sensitive or connected to intuitive or social things in that evening star mode. But this has been really, really exacerbated because Mercury has been in Cancer, which is also a pretty sensitive sign. Now, as Mercury shifts or changes into Leo, there's like a little bit less of a sensitivity towards Mercury, a little bit more of a extroverted, communicative kind of Mercury that is not afraid to say what he wants to say. So that is also a change that is, I think, important for the week. Now, if we roll the clock forward to Tuesday, this is happening between Tuesday of this week to Tuesday of next week. The sun is also making a sextile to Uranus, and this is perfecting on Friday by 10:59. So roll the clock forward here a day, and you can see here is the sun at 20 degrees, moving into that 3-degree range of engagement to Uranus. This is also almost like, for me, this is kind of like a mirroring aspect of Mercury entering Leo later on in the week. As we see here in a second, Mercury emerges into visibility, and this is simultaneously happening as the sun is making a sextile to Uranus, and Mercury is in the sun's temple. So there is a growth or a prominence of a very luminescent or light flooding through the mind. That connection that the sun has to Uranus is bringing those sudden insights or revelations, I think, to the solar qualities of the period. So this is also a pretty positive thing that is happening in the week, and it really stands out as prominent for me. Now, also on Tuesday, we have an exalted moon in the last quarter phase that is making a conjunction to the greater benefic, and also is later going to be sweeping by Uranus. So that is also a pretty powerful lunation moment of the week ahead, I think. And if we go now to Friday, by 7:05 p.m. GMT time, we get the moon moving into Gemini and on into the dark moon phase, which is that very last phase about 45 degrees before the new moon. So then we enter the dark lunation phase. So this is an interesting week from the standpoint of the end of the lunation cycle, I think. And if we go now to Friday, by 11:17 p.m., we also get Mercury emerging into visibility. And this is also connected to some of the other themes of the week here. We get Mercury at about 7 degrees already, moving very, very quickly. Look at that. Mercury enters at the beginning of the week and has already moved 7 degrees into Leo. But you'll notice that here's the sun at about 22 degrees of Cancer, has about 8 degrees before the end of Cancer, and Mercury at 7 degrees of Leo. So you get 15 degrees of separation between the two planets. 15 degrees is right around the time where, if you go out in the evening time, it takes about an hour after the sun goes down for the sky to get dark enough. But this is right around, you're thinking Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, where if you want to try to do this, this would be really fun to do. If you have clear skies and not a lot of light pollution, you can begin to see Mercury shining through the dusk. And that is really special. Now, in ancient astrology, that was an omen for Mercury as the messenger god becoming visible. That's an omen that a message is becoming visible. So there's an announcement that is made, and it's really potent or powerful because it's happening in the sun's temple, a temple that is ruled over or is the domicile of a very powerful planet like the sun. So that is also a pretty important signature of the week. Now, let's get into some of the archetypal themes. Let's go through these themes one by one. Mercury opposed Pluto themes. So I have the theme of intense and difficult passing. I chose the word passing because Mercury is a god of movement that travels back and forth very rapidly. So a god that is associated with anything that moves back and forth very quickly, like sports or like the exchange of goods or money within markets, or the exchange or movement of ideas or words back and forth between people. So now, Mercury traveling through the last degrees of Cancer. In ancient astrology, the last degrees of each sign are either the bounds of Mars or the bounds of Saturn, both malefics. In modern astrology, right, we call them the anaretic degrees. But in any case, those last few degrees of of signs typically are associated with kind of difficulty. So you get Mercury going through an emotional sign like Cancer, moving through the anaretic or the bound terms of a malefic, and making an opposition to Pluto. This for me is an omen, something that represents or symbolizes that there could be difficult emotions that are passing or coming up that may have to do with, just feeling overly emotional or tired or having to have intense conversations with people or something like that, family members, something like that, working something out, or just maybe feeling kind of moody or depressed or down or something along those lines. But the thing to note about this transit, though, is that it gets interrupted as Mercury ingresses into Leo, and immediately the aspect is broken apart because Leo and Capricorn do not have oppositional sight to one another. They're in aversion to each other. So even though degree based, you would still see in the chart that opposition line, but by whole sign configuration, there is no longer an opposition. So from the standpoint of ancient or Hellenistic methodology, we say that the opposition is broke up once Mercury leaves Cancer. So in other words, the omen from the traditional standpoint is that things change quite rapidly and improve away from those emotional or intense feelings that we're having. So I think that is also a positive. Now, Aries, last quarter moon kinds of themes. I have severing the umbilical cord and the beginning of the end. This is such an interesting last quarter moon, and I'll tell you why. We have both of the lights, the sun and the moon, in signs that are connected to birth and beginnings, right? Aries is the beginning of spring, and the moon ruled Cancer, where the sun is. In the ancient Thema Mundi chart, which was the birth chart of the world, I'm going to put an image of this post recording here so you guys can see the Thema Mundi. But if you're unfamiliar with the Thema Mundi, ancient astrologers devised a chart that was representing the birth of time, or the birth of the cosmos, or the birth of the world. And they placed Cancer as the rising sign for the birth of the world or of the cosmos. And they did that because they wanted to convey that Cancer and the temple of the moon, or the association with lunar things, had a connection to birth and mothers, or mother nature, or the material realm of the cosmos, versus like starlight that is far away and represents more of an ethereal or like a higher realm of divinity. The moon was concerned with the material fortune, or the material physical world, the physical birth of beings into matter and things like that, right? So both of the lights are in signs that are connected with material birth or springtime. But why this is interesting for me is you don't associate the last quarter phase of the lunation cycle as birth. You think of it as the opposite. You think of it as letting go, releasing, walking away from, the dying out of something. For me, I always notice that last quarter lunation phases feel like a calming down of passion. The first half of the lunation cycle, there may be passion that I'm directing towards something I'm working on, or something I'm interested in or want to learn about, or whatever it is. But there's like that passion is sort of burning. For me, the last quarter lunation phase, for me personally, let me know in the comments if you've noticed this or if you feel it differently. But for me, it feels like there's just kind of like a sitting back in the chair going, okay, it's not so intense. The passion is going away. And I think that severing the umbilical cord is a good theme for this, because you're releasing or walking away from, or the passion is waning for the purpose of getting ready to incorporate something new, right? Some new passion or new interests or new project or something like that. But because this is happening in the sign of Aries, you get themes like the beginning of the end of the lunation cycle, but it's in that springtime sign of beginnings. So could this be the start of something getting released or let go of? A moon that is in a phase that tends to release or let go of things happening in a sign that is Mars ruled. There can be conflicts, severing, cutting, that Marsy kind of doing battle to get away from something. So that is also kind of a signature. So this is a time where if we feel compelled, like we need to move forward in a particular way, and there are things that aren't serving, this is definitely a time where if somebody opposes that or has an issue with that, we're not going to shy away, I think, from letting them know that, hey, that's not okay. We're going to do this, and it's very independent, and it stands its ground, so to speak. So definitely a strong theme of the week. Now, Mars entering the sign of Virgo. My theme for this is let me help you with that. And critical surgery. So, of course, I'm just plucking some typical words for Virgo, right? Everybody says Virgos are critical. Virgo is a Mercury ruled sign that is a nighttime or feminine sign that is right before the entrance of the dark half of the year at the time of the fall equinox at the beginning of Libra, right? So Virgo is very helpful, and it wants to prepare. It wants to judge things out. It's separating the wheat from the chaff. Mars is very good at separating anything in the sign of Virgo. So there is skill, there is also temperance and tempering off of being rash or impulsive. So this is more of a rational, helpful kind of Mars, I think, that is really interjecting energy into ways that are helpful or need to come together and work as a team or anything like that. So this is, for me, it's a nicer kind of Mars, I think. Now, Mercury entering Leo almost has a little bit more of the opposite of that, where if this was like a tarot kind of video, we would be talking about the page cards, and you get the royal page card, of course, because we're talking about Mercury moving into the sun's temple, and the sun is the planet that is associated with the central authority of the king or of the father or a boss or a CEO. Mercury moving into this temple, we're going to be getting back to some central idea of personal independence or authority, some personal message that needs to be conveyed about standards that we hold for ourselves. And we want to make sure that other people are aware of those standards. That's one theme. The royal page is announcements by people in authority, like governmental figures or bosses or CEOs. But you also have this noble knowledge kind of theme that comes along with it, a little bit more of an esoteric kind of quality of the sun that is connected with divination or knowing all. We have the sun is the planet that sees all, is, looking down at the world, and he sees everything. So Mercury is a planet that wants to learn. The sun is a planet that is connected to knowledge or gnosis. So this is an incredibly curious and positive place for Mercury to be. There could be new pursuits of learning or writing that have to do with a future or a legacy, right? Leo is connected with getting at something that has a deeper sense of lastability or legacy. So these are also themes that are coming into play, I think, in the week here. And of course, Mercury, is moving through this sign for a couple of weeks. So these themes will become amplified. But I think that this theme immediately becomes amplified by the sun sextile Uranus, because the sun is the ruler of Leo. Mercury is becoming visible again in this sign this week, and simultaneous to this, the sun makes that sextile to Uranus. So know thyself, know thy home. The sun is still in the sign of Cancer, the sign of the moon that connects to family or home or mother. So you get the sun receiving sudden breakthroughs of insight or revelation or intuition or innovation. So there may be ways in which it's like all of a sudden we just know, we just have insight or intuition that is really, really clear. And we may know exactly what we want, exactly what we need to say to people, things like that, especially as it relates to things of the home or of the family or of relationships, I think. Now, the last quarter moon conjunct Jupiter and Uranus themes. This is such an amazing kind of last quarter moon. It's very specific in its symbolism. Again, we have the last quarter moon, which is going to be emblematic of releasing or walking away from or some passion dying out. But this happening in the sign where the moon was said to be exalted in ancient astrology. The reason for the moon's exaltation in Taurus is because Taurus is that time of year where abundance and life is returning and becoming stable again after the winter. So you get like the wealth of the land in terms of like new cows in the ancient times that were being born, or the milk coming back to cows, the flowers blooming, the warmth returning, the light becoming stronger again. So what do you have when you mix that symbolism of releasing and walking away, but having something being very fortuitous, something exalted or representing good fortune or abundance or growth or wealth of the land? That kind of theme is coming in, and it's also connecting to Jupiter, which was, of course, a planet that is connected to beneficial friends, allies, benefactors, receiving inheritances, just having good fortune or luck, a connection to justice or law, a connection to wisdom or knowledge. So you can see that this is a really, really positive moment where the moon is coming through the sign of her exaltation, making a conjunction to the greater benefic, potentially bringing in themes like, hey, I let this go and I walked away from this, and man, did that lead to something really positive for me in my life. Or I let go or released something, and all of a sudden I knew exactly what I wanted that was way better. Or it could have a connection to women that are somehow beneficial because this is the moon, a planet obviously connected to women, and also in the moon's temple of exaltation, a sign that is ruled by Venus but is said to be a feminine or nighttime sign. So there's definitely this connection to women and things that are beneficial. So could this be a moment where your sister is able to really help you out in some way, or your mom, or you have something fortunate happen because of women, or there's some connection there to women that are somehow connected to things that are improving in your circumstances around you. So that is also coming this week, but this begins to change into a little bit different of an energy when we get the dark moon in the sign of Gemini later on. Now, for me, the dark moon is kind of like if you were to go visit somebody that was very old in like a nursing home, or maybe even in the hospital before they pass or something like that. There is this gentle, mysterious, otherworldly quality to the dark moon that is very magical and mysterious and dark, and it's a little scary. It's like almost like Halloweenish, but it's gentle because it's like you're around an otherworldly, elderly energy that is trying to impart or pass something on, right? So it's like if there's something that needs to be said, there's no longer the time to say it. So we have this dark moon energy happening in the sign of Gemini, a sign that is, of course, ruled or hosted by Mercury, a god of communication. So my theme for this was any last words. Now, this isn't like somebody at the gallows that is about to be executed. This is, again, more like this gentle, magical, otherworldly kind of energy that is really seeking to impart or transmit something really important. So I could definitely see being this last phase in the lunation cycle right before a new moon in Cancer. I could definitely see this as a time where there are gentle but deep or magical ideas or communications that are coming through. So I really like this. I'm really curious to see what this is like. But there could be some very healing moments that you have in relationships with people as you let them know what the sun making that sextile to Uranus, Mercury emerging into visibility in Leo. And now we get this really gentle, communicative dark moon energy that is coming through. It's very communicative and it's gentle and soft, but it's also I want to convey or transmit something that is really, really important to me and holds some central level of authority or importance in my life. So I wonder about that. But anyway, that is part of the energy of the end of the week here. And then lastly, we get again, Mercury emerging into visibility. This is happening in the sign of Leo, the temple of the sun. So we get themes that are definitely connected to important announcements. But why do we get that? Again, because Mercury, that transition from not being able to see Mercury in the evening to all of a sudden you go out and you see Mercury, the messenger god, that movement back into visibility is an omen that says that announcements become visible. So announcements become heard or visible. So this is a time where you all of a sudden you learn something, you see something, money becomes maybe there, or laws become enacted at that time. Something really important happens with Mercury moving into visibility, but it really connects to people that have some central kind of authority, like judges, kings, presidents, people in government, or people in charge of important companies, CEOs, things like that. And of course, down here on the personal level, it could be a fatherly figure or a boss at work. But again, it could also be a time where you feel the need to let others know what is important to you, what principles you stand on, where your authority you feel is made clear to other people. So crossing boundaries, things like that. So these are some of the themes that end the week here. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. I hope you guys got something good out of this and enjoyed it. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys notice or what you like about the video. And we'll be back again on next Monday for another Mantic Monday. Until then, have a great week, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.